And we are live, and it is my pleasure to introduce our special guest today, Adam Curry, aka the Podfather. He's been around about as long as anybody in podcasting. He's actually a big part of the reason podcasting is what it is today, and it's a great thing to have you on today, Adam. Thank you for agreeing to do this.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Most of my audience probably knows who you are, but just in case there's a few that don't, can you kind of go back to the beginning when you started podcasting and what made you choose that form of media?
Well, the history goes back actually to 2000, so that predates podcasting, which Dave Weiner and I guess you would say invented, but sometimes I think discovered is a better term. That was more 2004. In 2000, I was living in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. I just moved back. Took a company public in the States on NASDAQ and had a whole interesting career. Was kind of going to retire, which is a dumb idea. And in the Netherlands, which is a really densely cabled country, they had cable modems, which provided this tremendous benefit of not having to dial in and tying up your phone line. So you had always on internet. By no means did it have any speed. It was still crap. And, the coming kind of out of a multimedia world, a television world and radio world, I was disappointed with the experience of clicking something, waiting, and I'm not kidding, 5 or 10 minutes to download a video. I was looking more at video than audio. So after that happens, you had to click it and it would open up a player and that was like a minute video. It was not an experience. And I wrote a blog post called The Last Yard. And the idea was, if since your computer is on all the time anyway now, why can't you have it look for something that it knows you'll want? So a video or a MP3 file, or I didn't really know what that meant, but I was thinking more video at the time. And just have your computer download that in the background and then not tell you that it's doing that until it actually has it on the drive and says, hey, there's something new. Then you would click on it, it would play immediately. And that would be a trick to shift time. Dave Weiner was developing RSS at the time with blogs, and he had a piece of software called Radio Userland, and it created an RSS feed, and you could also subscribe to RSS feeds. It was all in one. And I came up with this Last Yard idea, and I said, well, why don't we make a file attachment to RSS, which was really for blogs at the time. That way, it's like attaching, a file to an email. And then the aggregator on the receiving side can decide what to do with that. And so actually flew to New York to convince him to do this. He was in New York, and he did not think it was interesting until I wrote an example in his own code of his Radio Userland, which when he saw that, he said, okay, I'll do it, but you have to promise you never, ever use my code again, because that was a horrible thing to see. I said, okay, that's fine. I'm not a coder at all. So then we were kind of like the only people playing around with that. And it was just, I'd see we had auto downloading. So when something came in, and there was a little folder on your desktop, and that's where the video files or whatever else, we were doing PDFs, all kinds of stuff. And then I saw my first iPod in 2004, and I was like, holy crap, this is not a digital Walkman. This is not a jukebox. This is a radio receiver. I used to have one just like it. It was a little Sony, like a square, solid state AM radio. My grandmother gave it to me, had a 9-volt battery, put it under the pillow at night, listen to the basketball games. And so then I set about rigging an RSS feed with AppleScript so that when there was a new item, it would download that item and then put it into my iTunes. You had to still synchronize with iTunes. And then it would create a playlist based upon the parameters of the blog post title. And so before you know it, I'd actually transformed my iPod into a podcast player. And I immediately set about doing a show called The Daily Source Code, which was just exactly what it sounds like, a daily quote unquote radio show. It wasn't called podcasting at the time. And what I was talking about is my shitty ass script. So can anyone build something better? Because we need radios basically. And developers came from all over the world creating different versions. We discovered all of this horrible stuff early on, like You should not subscribe to a feed, and then it should not automatically download every podcast in that feed. All these little things that we hadn't figured out. And from there, the acceleration was exponential. And we were getting attention from mainstream media, the BBC, NPR. They were all over this stuff. And within a year, 2005, close to 2006, Steve Jobs had called me and asked for a meeting to talk about putting podcasting into iTunes proper and have it work. There was no iPhone at the time. Have it work with the iPod. So that's kind of the brief history of podcasting and how I was involved with it.
In other words, you practically created it on some levels, at least.
With Dave Weiner. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But really a cast of thousands of developers and early adopters. Tony Khan, WGBH, dragged NPR into it early on. Christopher Lydon was doing interviews early on. There was a BBC. There was just a lot of people who contributed. But really the developers are the ones who created all the experiences.
Yeah, because even for me, who I've been around since 2008, and I've been full-time since 2010, when I got started, it was very early in the days, I think, of real uptake of podcasts, but it was all there. It was all there. All I did was figure out, I can put this thing into a WordPress blog and send it out over, iTunes. And it made getting started really easy. And I kind of want to go into next, like the value proposition that podcasting offers today in 2022, and kind of look at two sides of it. One is people like us. I mean, we both earn a living doing what we do. In 1995, we could have been as good as we are. We still wouldn't. There was no way to do this in 1995 without going through the mainstream gauntlet, basically figuring out how to get on syndicated radio or something like that. But I think the other side is like podcasting is a huge value proposition today to listeners, right? Or to viewers if it's in video, because they're getting content that they can't get anywhere else because it's too narrow. Like some of it's not even about censorship. Some of it's like you follow, I don't know, curling or something. Like you're not going to get much coverage of that on CNN or even ESPN. But then the other side is that we are able to reach people with a message that's being shut down elsewhere. And I know you've done a lot of work to try to make sure that as that gets tightened down on, and it seems like it is, that there's alternatives.
Well, let's go back to that genesis. I made a mistake early on. So Steve Jobs called me and said, "Can I meet with you?" Which, of course, like, are you fucking kidding me? Yes, of course. Up there with Quincy Jones. Like I've spoken to some interesting people. You're on my list. Very interesting meeting. Very, very humble, really sympathetic guys. A couple of things I noticed that were surprising. But in general, when I gave Steve the index that we had built, which was at iPodder.org, it was an open source index of podcasts. We had a couple thousand in there at the time. Said, here you go. Start it off. What I did not realize is I was really giving Apple license to become the on-ramp to podcasting. And podcasting is inherently decentralized. There's 20, 30 different hosting companies. There's lots of different apps with different experiences, different types of features and functionality. But in order to be accepted, you had to go through the 2 to 3 day Apple onboarding process, adhere to their technical standards. And really what was forgotten in all this is the guys who were building radios. As a broadcaster, I never really had to think about radios. Everyone has a fucking radio. It's in your car. It's in your boat. It's like everyone has a radio. I don't have to worry about that. And then Apple became kind of the default radio, with the only incentive for app developers to build apps was again through Apple, such as Overcast, like get people to pay you for the work you've done to make the radio work. It's not something a lot of people are used to doing. But also most of the apps that were independent or outside of the Apple ecosystem were using the Apple database, because as it turns out, when you have a couple thousand podcasts in the world, it's okay for your mobile device to be looking at those feeds and parsing them and making sure there's updates and making sure you're getting the podcast soon enough. But when there's 4.5 million, Now it becomes quite a chore. I mean, you could just drain your battery just on doing all that crunching by itself. So people were using the Apple aggregator, their index, which Apple really didn't support as an endpoint per se. It was just there because their own app used it, and therefore it had to be openly accessible through the API. So this was kind of coddling along, and the thing that was noticeable that in over 10 years, there'd really not been an update to any features of podcasting. Nothing. And it was a chicken and the egg problem. Hosting companies weren't about to add features that, quote unquote, the big boys like Apple weren't going to implement. And the app developers had no incentive because they too were on Apple's index. So if Apple doesn't store it, then they can't show it. So this was an ongoing chicken and the egg, and there were all kinds of steering committees and groups and governors and all kinds of stuff that, we're going to be an industry and we're going to go talk to Apple. And of course, that never happened. It never materialized. It just was a big circle jerk for 10 years that I really wasn't a part of because everything was kind of working until two things happened. One, Apple decided uniformly to deplatform Alex Jones and 5 or 6 other so-called QAnon podcasts, of which one is the X22 report, which I listen to with regularity. I'm like, this is fucking innocuous. What kind of bullshit is this? But it was a coordinated takedown, if you recall. Google, Facebook, Twitter, it all happened one night, and Apple led the charge. And that was very disappointing because those podcasts disappeared from all podcast apps because they were all on the Apple index. Well, now we have a problem, Houston. Second problem is I just met Joe Rogan, just been on his show, and he was moving to Spotify. Well, holy crap. So Spotify owns now arguably or has the exclusive rights to one of the most successful podcasts. We need to make the podcast ecosystem, fuck being open. I mean, anyone who's trying to close it is not in podcasting as far as I'm concerned. We need to make it attractive and robust enough for the next Joe Rogan, because there's going to be hundreds of them, and not just America, around the world. So I knew that two things needed to be done, because there's also a financial deplatforming that's taking place, which is very dangerous for people who, we saw it with Patreon. There was a lot of examples of this throughout the past couple of years prior to this big, let's take some podcasts down. People were getting deplatformed from their money supply, connection literally to their audience, because of something they said somewhere else, not even on this platform or not even through Patreon or any of this. So, the money was a problem. Now, I knew how to solve the first one easily, which is we're just going to create an open, independent index. We will offer an API free to developers so that anybody can come in. And if you don't want to show certain shows that are in the index, in that regard, we're like Google, then just filter them out. Don't show them. That's fine. So we're just a warehouse, and you throw the shit in, and we make it easy for you to get out. We make it so easy. We make a full copy of our database available once a week, just so that people can download the whole thing, go off and make your own service. This is the new world of open projects and open development. Luckily, this is during the original 2 weeks to flatten the curve. I had been, besides going insane trying to figure out what kind of scam we were being led into now, I also started learning about the Lightning Network. And the Lightning Network is kind of, I equate it to like Venmo for Bitcoin, where your bank and all that infrastructure and the Swift network, that's Bitcoin. And then you have a lightweight app on top, which does smallish amounts, up to a couple $100, and it's really fast, and the fees are incredibly low or zero. And I had kind of one of those epiphany, mind-blowing moments. I got a Raspberry Pi. I loaded the Raspberry Blitz software on it. All of a sudden, I have a full node, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is like programmable money. This is very interesting, and it's real micropayments. You can do, a thousandth of a US dollar cent. So, well, this is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I first heard you were doing that, and somebody just said Bitcoin, I was like, "What, is he high?" And then they said, "Oh, he's doing it with Lightning," and I'm like, "Oh, that's freaking brilliant."
And so I presented this to Dave Jones, who I met actually 12 years ago in another Dave Weiner related project, outline processor markup language, and we've built all kinds of cool products. It usually goes like this: Hey Dave, we got a great idea. This is it. And then you'd be like, cool, that's a cool idea. Let's build it. Now that means Dave's going to build it, but Adam breaks it, Dave builds it. And we just go through these loops, and it's always been just, we're friends, just fun. And then we always come up with these products that we love, we use, that no one else understands, no one uses. And I said, this is another one of those calls, dude, let's create an index with an API, and let's create, and Dave, of course, knows how to do this with namespaces. And, he's very, very good at managing these projects. Let's build in Lightning, and we'll take the value for value concept that John C. Dvorak and I have been using for now in our 15th year. Let's take that and apply it to this scenario, to this use case where you're receiving value in ones and zeros, which translates into MP3 sound into your ear or video. Simultaneously, you're sending value back, ones and zeros, in the form of money. And you determine what you want to send based upon the value that you are receiving. And this is what's really revolutionary, is the idea that this type of product, which is highly subjective to what it's worth, can only truly be determined by the receiver if it's valuable or not, and how valuable that is. And here's the big surprise: once you leave that pricing mechanism open, you make a lot more money than if you fix it at a set fee. And all the psychological reasons for that, Dvorak and I are finally deciding, I think, to write a book about it, which will be in turn value for value. So it'll be out there available for everybody. Send us something if it worked for you. That proposition kind of solved two things, or three things. The most important to me is that now everyone's in the ecosystem. So if a podcast listener is sending a micropayment to the podcaster, a piece of that automatically goes to everyone who's contributing. So the app that you're using will take a small percentage. The index that provides this for free will take we take 1%. And then we built in what I call the distributed digital royalty system, the ability to split the payments between whoever you want. So if you have a co-host, you can give 50% to the co-host, or 40 or 30. You can give 5% to an investor, 10% to someone who promotes your show really well. And this all takes place in real time, which now everybody benefits in the whole system. So there's an incentive for everybody to work and together and to make this thing successful. And now we are a year and a half into the project. We have 4,500 podcasts that are value for value enabled. We have 15 podcast apps that have integrated some or all of our podcasting 2.0 features, which are also more than 10 and continue to be built. And we have a real community that is doing insane shit. Like yesterday, out of the blue, one app in particular just started to advertise a live stream where you'd normally see your podcast. Said, hey, live item. It opened up a chat. You could send messages in real time into with a boostergram, so with money, into the chat to the podcaster. It was like on a live stream. The whole thing just, and it's like 4 to 5 different people all came together kind of on this Sunday. Oh yeah, I think we can do this now, and my piece is ready, and boom, it just happened. And that was the Bowls with Buds. It was mind blowing. So this project with David Bowie, when he was describing the internet to the BBC, I think this was around 2000. He said, it's a fucking alien monster. We have no idea what it can do yet. And I think we're starting to see the monster, the tip of the monster's tongue now, how cool it is and what can really take place once we live free of these artificial bars we've put in front of our face by using free, quote unquote, free shit from big tech.
Yeah, and I think we are really starting to see the monster the internet's turning into, and I think that's a monster that if we use it right is on our side. When I started, it was ironic because people were listening to a podcast, which they could have done without the internet. But in my space, preparedness, survivalism, and homesteading and things like that, there's a lot of skepticism, justifiably, with anything the government touched. Like, well, the government built this. The government built this. Well, you're using it to listen to me, and now we can use it to our own advantage. Like, I don't even think they knew what they were letting loose. And I remember back in like 2015 saying the internet is still in diapers. Like, you think of it as being around for a while, it's still an infant. We have no idea where this is going. And I think that the beauty of this is exactly what you were talking about there. It's not just that we can build these great technologies, but when you put out an idea and you don't try to have complete control over it and you actually are willing to let go of it, like you said, people that know more than you and I do. There's a lot of things I would like to do, but I don't have the knowledge to code and I don't have the time to code. I have a show to produce. But I've been amazed over the years at how you'll say, like, we should have a thing that does this. And somebody's like, we have a thing that almost does that. Give me a week. And all of a sudden you have a thing that does the thing you just conceived of. And so as long as we have the ability to communicate and distribute these things, then it's very difficult for them to ever actually, in my opinion, employ true full-on censorship. I mean, as far as I know, there's people right now basically building parallel internets, let alone, platforms like Podcast Index, like literally building alternative ways to get to places, unstoppable domains. Because I always live in fear that one day, like the survival podcast, .com hit, this returns no results. We're already mirrored on Tor, but I think there's more and more things coming where we're going to be able to just stay up, and good luck taking it down. And I also think, and I'm interested in what you think about this. I've been thrown in YouTube prison a couple times recently. Got 2 strikes now. Again, I went long enough to get off of them before. And to me, we can actually use what they're doing against them in that immediately I went out. This is the video YouTube doesn't want you to see. And I put it out on Odyssey and all the other alternative platforms. It's at the point now, I think, where when they do take something down, it actually pushes people off. I heard this morning that Rogan's podcast is not on Spotify.
No, it was down for 20 minutes or so.
Yeah. And then everybody went nuts. And I was like, but if you really did that, do you know how stupid that would be? Like,
okay, so couple things. One, the internet's in diapers, but that's not really the problem. We're still in diapers. We have fucking tailbones. We have no clue what is going on with our brains. We're just now understanding how our brains have been hacked by algos and dopamine hits and how destructive that can be and how unhappy it makes people in social media. And you don't really understand how evil that is until you immerse yourself in something like a Mastodon, where some people say, well, what the hell is different about Mastodon? Nothing. It's Twitter without the algo. Once you don't have the algo, then all of the flaming and all that just dies down with the progression of time because it slips down on the timeline. There's nothing bringing it back, knowing that it's time to engage you with another dopamine hit of anger or whatever it is. So that's the biggest problem. And we have complete artificial barriers that we built. Now, what you're saying about just the way you speak about it, and I mean this from an analytical standpoint, not as a criticism, just the way you speak about, well, we already have 2 strikes, and what YouTube, you're fighting YouTube. What the fuck are you doing? You're wasting your time. You're wasting your time on that shit. That's what they want. That's great for them. And it's a false sense of community that is baked in, and I can say this because we've never had this issue because we never relied on mainstream platforms. That it becomes the game itself, and I think that transcends sometimes what you're actually trying to do. So I see a lot of this now, like, instead of really working on the issues with the Freedom Convoy, with the truckers, it's about who got taken down, what live stream was shut off, whose money got captured. This is not capture the flag. This is our fucking future here. And I'm saying fuck a lot because it's early for me and it sounds good. I like the way it sounds in my throat. We are a fuck friendly zone here at TSP. Okay, good. Because I'm very passionate about this. We need to really move beyond this fucking game of well, I get knocked off Twitter. Oh, I got 2 strikes on my YouTube and blah, blah. All right, come on, freedom. No, instead of that, we need some balls and we need to move our audiences away right away. Just move them off. And my job, we all have jobs. I can't code either. I can conceptualize and I understand the nature of the people who surround the No Agenda podcast. I consider them peers. They're producers. They're not fans. They're not audience. They're not listeners. They are producers, equal in making this whole thing work, which has been going just fine for 15 years now. So you make shows, you make content. I make shows, I make content, and I try to organize people to build something like Podcasting 2.0, because and when it's the right note, then the orchestra comes to life. What is sometimes daunting is if I look at everybody who's working on these things, and it's hundreds and hundreds. It is like an orchestra, but someone showed up with a banjo. There's a guy with a washboard. Someone's got the spoons. There's a theremin, and somehow we have to make that all sound good at the same time. But it's possible, and it's not something you can actually do. It just happens like a flock of birds, So that's off to the races, and so when the more I hear about the deplatforming and all that, the faster I want it to go. Please kick everybody off. Kick them all off. Kick them off. Kick them off. Kick them off.
You are quoting me. I've been saying this for years. Please throw us all off at the same time.
Right.
We'd be so much better off. But they're strategic. They pick one person or 2 or 3 at a time, and they pluck them, and they seem to pick the perfect strategic time.
But even this, you're analyzing an enemy you don't have to fight.
Okay.
You don't have to fight them. We just go away. What turns out, it's slower. Because you're not in that. Look, the old thinking is the more people, the more successful. That's not true. The more people, the bigger target, the more problems. And what is successful? You want people who are, broadcasting is no longer just broadcasting. It's so interactive. And of course, that started with email. And now, we've got so many different loops that we're really building these media experiences with the people who are on the other end. And it's a two-way street, a full two-way street. And people want that ownership. They crave that ownership. And the value of having a smaller audience who are 3 times as dedicated, engaged, and willing to support it, that's just it. If you can influence so much with your own small crew, because other crews bump into your crew, and then, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. And then the crews kind of intersect, and then there's communication. We've seen this with No Agenda is a great example. So we have these watering holes, noagendasocial.com, which is a Mastodon server. We've federated. We have the troll room, trollroom.io. We have the stream, noagendastream.com. And so from No Agenda have spawned all these different podcasts, and they all kind of intersect. The same people, listen to 1 or 2 of the same shows. That spreads out. And that's how, you get more people engaged. But they're the right people. It's not just, oh, my God, I'm on the front page of iTunes. Oh, man, that means I'm rocking now. No, you're not. You're not. And these things take time to build, no matter what it is. And you're just, as you said earlier, you can get the knitting community, which, by the way, there's a lot of controversy in the knitting community. You can be a part of that. That's never going to be number 1 on iTunes, but is it number 1 for people who are into knitting? Yeah. So we have to move. This is our thinking has to change. Joe Rogan, innocuous little podcast dude, and I say that with love, arguably 10, 12 million people, checking at least one of his shows a month versus MSNBC, CNN, Fox, they don't have those numbers.
No.
So it's over. We're all just kind of pretending that, I think it's fear. That's really what it is. Like, if I get kicked off there, then I'm not real anymore. I don't exist. Now
No,
that's
I
when
don't care
life,
if I get kicked off. That's the beauty, and that's
but
kind
that's
of what
when
I've been. Yeah,
life starts.
I've been saying that all we need to be doing with these mainstream platforms, if you want to call them that, I call them legacy platforms, is siphoning. All we need to be, if we pick people up there, we need to be pushing them off of there and over to alternative platforms or new platforms, the next generation of
Well,
platforms.
I would say we need people to use protocols, not platforms.
Okay.
So when you use a platform, that's Spotify for,
Okay.
for podcasting. When you use protocols, you don't need to be you can have a Dropbox for your MP3 files and your RSS feed, and you're a part of the system. You will work just fine in any podcast app, which also doesn't have to be a platform. So using protocols is much more freedom oriented and much more likely of success. This is why Bitcoin. I don't really care for any other coins. I'm a Bitcoiner. I understand Bitcoin. I believe that's kind of the one that makes the most sense for me in my life. The decentralized nature of that, and really is just a protocol. I mean, it's literally like email or like FTP or any of these other. You don't deplatform email. You say
Gotcha.
you can deplatform people off of Coinbase because they're using a platform to access the protocol. So once you have the ability to use something just at the protocol level, the word deplatforming doesn't even apply because it would have to be deprotocoling, and you can't deprotocol. The protocol is what it is. It's out there for anybody to use.
You're not going to ban somebody from internet protocol.
Can't.
You can't do it. It's out there. It exists. I agree completely. Now you run a huge show. I run a pretty big show. I blow through terabytes of freaking data monthly. I run a dedicated box for that. Would you try to run a show the size of what you or I do using Dropbox? I mean, I shied away from like all of the free hosting things in the beginning because I knew I was going to build something big, and I didn't want to ever have my files sitting somewhere and something go down and not have somebody to call. I'll pay the bill in order to deliver the content.
Well, this was obviously just an example, but you
Okay.
technically can do it. As part of the value for value model that No Agenda pioneered and that we've lived by, it's not just treasure; it's time, talent, treasure. So we'll take anything you can do for us, and we'll be very very appreciative, and we will always credit you for what you did. Very early on, Mark Void Zero, he lives in the northern part of the Netherlands. He said, "I'd like to set up a little CDN for you guys so that you just kind of solid moving forward, and we'll future-proof you at a very reasonable cost." I believe our total monthly cost is $500 or $600, and that's for all of the show bandwidth. And he's set up a system through OVH. He has other producers who he trusts, who when he's asleep, someone else can be minding the store. And we've never really, I mean, yeah, sure, this stuff happens. We've had DDoS attacks, but even that, we've never really had an issue for I think he's been doing it 12, 13 years for us. And it's total trust. It works. The whole community supports if something goes wrong. So no, it's not. I would not want to run anything out. I mean, but I also wouldn't want to run it off of AWS. There's
Absolutely not. No.
So but the things are happening. So just recently, Generation Decentralized, I guess, Gen Decen. I got tagged on Twitter about a company out here in Hill Country, Texas. We're 90 miles west of Austin, that does fiber. And so I DM'd someone DM'd me, and I said, yeah, why don't you guys come out and we'll talk on Friday. And the CEO came out. It's a small company. They have 400 miles of dark fiber all around the Hill Country. They have their own machines in the exchanges. He said, they're very reasonable rates. So now I'm actually connected to the internet, not going through the spying that Spectrum does or any other, telco. It's direct, fiber. I can run servers from here, and it'll cost $80 a month. And it's a small company. They will call me. I can call them, whatever's going on. And that's the kind of thing we need. We need to really get away from all of these chokeholds wherever it involves assholes, which it seems to be a lot of them.
Yeah. I think, to me, one of the biggest mistakes I've seen podcasters make over the years is not forming a direct relationship with their listeners. My main monetization, I'm on your platform, and I receive sats daily, and I love that. But like, my main monetization platform going back years is I built a membership program, gives people discounts, additional content, things like that. And I build directly. I don't use Patreon. I mean, when I started it, none of that stuff existed.
Right.
But the biggest thing that gives me is a database of all my people. So if I do disappear from somewhere, I can say, hey, this is how you can find me. And I find so many people, and not just podcasters, like YouTube creators that I guess you'd call them podcasters, but they're not in that ecosystem. They're only doing video content. They're not distributing it with RSS. And they're running YouTube ads. They're running that stupid membership program thing that YouTube does, and super chats and all. And some of these people are making six-figure income. Some are making 30, 40 grand a month with this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, to me, it's frightening that, like, you don't understand that can all be gone. I was doing things in the tech field and the internet back in the early 2000s with things like, I was doing arbitrage with Google AdWords, right? So we were building these little sites and moving traffic around, and we were making, some months, tens of thousands of dollars just in AdSense arbitrage. And in one day, all that ended. I watched, I don't know if you remember this, there was a site called Paper Post, and it was basically people buying blog posts, and they were buying links, right? And all these mommy bloggers started making a couple, $3,000 a month. These were, women staying at home, taking care of their kids. And Google went in and manually readjusted their sites to completely devalue them to zero. Like, they couldn't fix their algorithm. They manually did that. And those people had no direct relationship with their customers. And I think, like, that, to me, is the biggest mistake, is not having that ability to reach out to your people at any time and say, here's where I am, here's what's going on.
And this is why we built. Yes. And I don't care if people don't understand it. They'll understand soon enough. I have no time to tell people they're in peril and in danger. If you can't see that, if you don't see it around you, if you think it's not going to happen to you, shame on you. So yes, our methods are Troll Room, No Agenda Social, newsletter. These are the main things. So, we have bat signals. We have, and we've always encouraged people to do their own thing. So there must be 15 Telegram channels, one for Gitmo Nation, the slaves of Gitmo Nation Lowlands, Gitmo Nation Chicago, the 512 group, meetups, another thing. People organize their own meetups. They get together. One of our producers put together noagendameetups.com to facilitate that. All of this shit is available with big tech, but it's not worth it. It's the times we've had something go wrong with any of our infrastructure, I can count on 10 fingers probably, versus at any moment being thrown off, a software change, an upgrade that screws everything up, all of these things, hassle. So again, it's like, my job is to build for the millennial user of this technology, which I think is really where it's at. We're talking late 20s is the people who are most excited about this, and that's my daughter's age. So this is we just need to reset our thinking. It's not important to be number one on YouTube, number one on Twitter. Yeah, I mean, if you like flipping houses, you can do that too. So, you can be very successful flipping homes, and you can be very successful doing a YouTube show, and it can end through government intervention, through, all kinds of things beyond your control. So as a part of surviving, and I like your whole premise, we are now almost 100% off grid capable, just waiting for the propane line to be connected to the whole house generator. the same goes for my digital life. I want to be as independent as possible of any software or network things that can be manipulated to ruin my day.
Yeah, I mean, really what we do is basically lifestyle design, and it goes into all things. It goes into the redundancy of the power to your home, but it goes into the redundancy of the technology you're using.
For
And
sure.
what I love about the way you're making this all, like, take it and do what you want. Like, there's one of my listeners recently did a comment. He's got it built something called sovereign feeds.
Yeah,
And
that's
I guess
that's Stephen B. I know exactly who that is. That's one of our main podcasting 2.0 developers. Sure.
And I think that's pulling straight out of Podcast Index, right? That's how that's
well, what Sovereign Feeds does is very important, and it took us a long time to get someone to do that, or it took me a long time to motivate someone to do this really thankless task, because what he did is a labor of love towards the podcasting community, and it's create a very simple way for anybody to immediately look at the features they can add to their existing podcast, create an RSS feed so you can actually see that work in new players, and then make the decision for yourself. Do I want to go to a host that has these features, or a lot of these features, and can do them for me that I'll pay? Or do I want to use Sovereign Feeds, which I use for all my shows now, to basically create it, to throw it up on a server somewhere?
So what would you say to somebody right now? We had a lot of people when I was waiting for you we were waiting to start, that have talked about starting podcasts. And I think there's a lot of people that feel like, there's so many podcasts out there now, and you're white noise in the background. I think we need more podcasters. I'm willing to share the space with anybody, and I think that they should be encouraged to do so.
Well, I view podcasts in a very particular way. In fact, I think Podcast Index in the future will be a misnomer, because I think the index is probably a better way of describing it. To me, and we've had a lot of community conversations about this, where people will say, well, how many of those shows in the Podcast Index are dead? I'm like, well, what does dead mean? So I did 800 episodes of the Daily Source Code. Is that not worth having to go back and listen to? Is that dead now? So fuck it, get rid of it? No, that's arrogance. So we have to really think about what a podcast is. What I want, to me, success would be a college professor who can record some of his or her lectures, and then decide, you know what, I'm going to put this on a podcast feed for my students, and be able to go home and do that and have it work right away. Not have to go through Apple's hoops and jumps and all that, and be able to really do it yourself. Even if you don't have the money for a hosting company, you can use a WordPress. There's so many different ways that you can create a podcast, and that to me would be a super valid podcast. There are people using the same architecture to release albums, with episodes being tracks. And I think we're going to see that this is a really interesting way of and what's even cooler about the album thing. This is Abel and the Wolf, Sir Spencer and Abel Kirby, abelandthewolf.com. So they set up their value for value splits. Remember, I was talking about the distributed digital royalty system, so that when someone is listening to one of their tracks, the money that I am sending in real time actually goes to 5 different people. It goes to the writer, composer, it goes to the lyricist, all different. So it's basically disintermediating ASCAP, BMI, SoundStream, all of these guys, which are big black holes where the money goes in, and 48 months later something trickles out. You're not sure. You have to sue everybody all the time. You got the labels making trouble, and the hate for Joe Rogan and Spotify from musicians is not about Joe Rogan. It's about Spotify and people who, even Abel and the Wolf would be the first to say they know that they made more money using value for value using the index than they would have if they launched on Spotify. So
no, I think there's definitely something to value for value, because you set a price in your head and a lot of people are below it, but then a lot of people are above it. And like you said, it's very subjective, right?
It's huge. The amount of people who will, look at No Agenda. Now, you have to have an outstanding product. If you got shit product, who's going to pay for it, and people won't listen, and doesn't matter. So whatever we're doing for the people that produce our show, they like it. And they like it so much that hundreds of people give us $5 a month. But we also have people who give us $500 a month. And we have some people who show up and say, crap, I have never donated. Here's $10,000. Thank you for what you've done for me. Now, who am I? That's the value that particular person, Dame Julia, that she put on whatever she got out of it. And for her, that, I don't know, she may be a billionaire. That may be a tip for her. Ooh, I throw that away all day. I don't know. It doesn't matter. That was her value. And to me, her value was enormous. So this is a psychological thing that we hope to also address in the book, of how people really want to support the things they love. And when you let them determine the price themselves, you're always surprised, because you're measuring money by your own standards. For me, $500 would be a lot per month for a podcast. Like, holy shit. I really got to get something out of that. For someone else, that may just be a great number. Yeah. So these are things that have not been explored. And quite honestly, people who control the money flow and control the pricing and purchasing of digital assets, they don't want us to figure this out, I don't think. No. It doesn't behoove. We're going around all systems. And it's like a human experience of an epic magnitude for me to see how, in this case, Bitcoin and podcasting have connected so many people to make something just work fucking better for us. If you want to put a label on it, this is real Web 3.0. Not the Silicon Valley version, but this is really it. Everyone's incentivized because of the value they get out of working together. That's not always money.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll tell you what I love about what you've done. I am not a maximalist, but what I call myself is a shitcoin minimalist. So I barely touch anything other than Bitcoin. There's some things I do like some of the privacy coins, because that's an easy onboarded. Once you have it, you can do private transactions. But I remember when Bitcoin Cash was declared basically war on Bitcoin, with Roger Ver at the helm, and they made a huge deal about simple ledger protocol. And all the shit you're talking about was the value proposition they were making with SLP, that you would be able to have, a restaurant, somebody goes in and buys a scone, and the cashier gets paid and the supplier gets paid. And that's what you've done. And you built it on Bitcoin, and it was supposedly, well, we can't do that with Bitcoin.
And it's really interesting because, so yes, I like the shitcoin minimalist. That's a good one. I would put myself there too. That's really the Lightning Network. When I saw the Lightning Network, for me it was the same aha moment that I had when I saw the first iPod. I'm like, holy crap, we can finally do this micro payment thing. And when I got into one of these development groups and the CEO of Lightning Labs, who does the LND version, there's all kinds of companies working on this, but they've been the main technology we've been using. I said, hey, everyone's talking about Wumbo channels and big money transferring, and we have a little puny network of like a couple hundred nodes that people have at home and are just, so we have small channels and very low transaction fees. And, what are your plans for really the microtransaction ecosystem? And, it was crickets, they're like, what the fuck is he talking about? Well, we've really been looking for two things from technology. One is true microtransactions on a per usage basis, which completely is it seems like Lightning was developed for it, but people were thinking in a different way. We do more transactions on the Lightning Network than any entity, because we're doing a transaction, not the amount. We're not doing more money than anybody. In fact, we're very low, but we do more transactions. In fact, that live thing I told you about yesterday with Bowls with Buds.
Yeah.
We had this only people who are old enough will remember this. We had our Victoria's Secret moment where the wallets literally could not keep up with the amount of money they had to send because it was so many people sending boostograms and all this stuff we can fix. But it was like one of those. Do you even know what I'm talking about with Victoria's Secret? Is that a reference? That
I don't know.
It was the Super Bowl, I want to say 95 or 96 Super Bowl, and Victoria's Secret at halftime did a live stream of their new collection, and it lasted for about 3 minutes because everyone tuned into the live stream, crashed everything, and those guys turned it around into this huge PR win. This was so popular, it blew up the internet, and it's now a famous example of something completely sucking and breaking being turned into a win. I need a better reference, an updated reference. So anyway, I was going to make a point about you originally saying
you had your Victoria's Secret moment,
right? No, but your original question was about doing it on Bitcoin.
Yeah, versus SLP with Bitcoin Cash and how you're actually able to do the things.
Yeah, okay. Now I know thank you. So just going back to Bitcoin Cash and the block wars, the block size wars, and this is also my issue with Ethereum and really all other coins. The whole point of the argument, and it's taken me many years to understand what the hell was going on. And so in hindsight, easy. I wasn't part of the conversation. But the whole point was keeping the block size small enables Adam to have a Raspberry Pi that, with a 2 terabyte drive, and I can participate in the network, therefore making the network more decentralized, more secure, more robust. The war was about the size, like we have to have much bigger block size, which by definition requires someone to have a lot of horsepower and storage to become a full node. And when you have that limitation, you're always going to get centralization of power. So the way I see it, that was the right choice, is to keep this block size at least in check with what consumer gear can do. So, you can have a 1 terabyte drive, cost you $100, and a Raspberry Pi, and you can be fully noded, and you're participating in the network, and you're helping make it robust, more secure. And of course, at the same time, you have your own node, so you are non-custodial by default, and you own it. And as long as you can remember your 12 or 24 seed words, whichever you choose, you can smash that thing. You can burn my house, and it's fine. I will be able to retrieve my money and be back online quickly.
Absolutely. And for the people that don't want to maybe do everything on their own, like I run a Start9 server. You plug a hard drive into it. You install a Bitcoin node by clicking a button. It's a little complicated because you got to.
What's it called? Start9?
Start9 Embassy servers, and they're a sponsor of our show. They do a great job. And later on, I can put you in touch with the owner.
Is that a cloud-based service?
It is. No, it is. I'll have to unplug it to show it to you. But when
don't unplug your node, bro. That'll take. You got to resync with the graph.
It's a box about the size of a deck of cards.
Oh, cool.
You plug it into your router. You plug.
That's a full node.
You can run a full Bitcoin node. You can run a full freaking Lightning node.
Right, but does it come pre-installed? Do you have to install?
No, you have to install it, but it's in. So when you plug it in, you take their app and you configure it, and you say install this. It's like almost like apps on an iPhone. Think of it that way.
Is it like Umbrel?
I don't know. If that's the case, but it is as simple as I want this on my Start9, and boom, it's there. You can run Sphinx chat and do end-to-end full encrypted chat. Back and forth, running on your own servers, back to each other. I don't know if this is legit or not. Some dude on Acapulco said you could literally pop a ceiling tile at a Starbucks, and if you can find power up there, tie into their Wi-Fi, and have distributed freaking of these things all over the planet. Now, that's not from the company itself. That was a presenter,
Oh, well, this is a sexy little box.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
And it comes, so you plug in an external hard drive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to use an SSD hard drive if you're running nodes. You don't want something sitting there.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's sexy.
I'm still learning everything
it
can do, but they reached out to me this fall. I had them on for an episode. And I'm like, man, we got to work together, because that's the kind of thing you're talking about.
This is very nice.
And I'm just wondering.
This is very similar. This is very similar to Umbrel. Umbrel is very popular right now. They have the exact same concept with the App Store and everything. Great. I'll order one of these. This is a very exciting little box. I like that. Yeah. Embassy. It's start9.com.
Start9. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering if maybe there's some way that some of what you're doing with like Podcast Index and all can.
Well, I mean, right now we have Helipad. I don't know if you have Helipad yet.
No.
Oh, my goodness.
Tell me about it.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Can I share my screen with you, bro?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hold on a second. So Helipad is the other side of the boostagram. So you're receiving sats. Now, when someone sends you a boostagram with a message, can you see that? Are you able to see that anywhere?
Do not see it. Usually it pops in down below, and let me see if there's something I need to do.
Pops in below?
Yeah, like I usually see like a window pop up down at the bottom of the studio, and if you're trying to share a screen, did you?
No. That's not what I mean. What I'm saying is, right now you're podcasting 2.0 enabled, and you're receiving sats on your node.
Yeah.
But we now have the ability to send like 1,000 sats or 5,000 sats in one go with the boost, and you can add a message. And I'm going to show you how that works. Hold on a second.
Oh, okay.
So this we need to make this available for your system. Okay, share screen. Okay. Boom.
Okay. Yeah, there you are. I'll add to the stream, and you can.
Okay. Can you see this now?
Yep.
What's on my screen?
You have the power.
Okay. So this is Helipad. So whenever someone sends me a boostagram, and this shows for no agenda, but you'll see podcasting 2.0, it shows me how many Satoshis came in, when, obviously, what show it was for, what episode, and then a message. So, and people are sending quite long message. Here's a longer message. And these are all, so here's 21,112 sats from the Mere Mortals podcast. And look, I got confetti coming down right now. That's because a stream came in. You'll see up here, the balance is 862,048. So let me show you something here.
Okay.
So let me switch back. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to do you a live demo, brother. Watch this.
All right.
This will be crazy. Okay.
When it pops back up, I'll drop you back in the screen here.
All right.
Because you closed out.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay.
No worries.
Anyone who's listening to the show will be severely disappointed. So let's go to Curiocaster here, the one you mentioned. It's a great web app. I'm going to grab the show I do with my wife here, Curry and the Keeper. And so I'll play this. Okay, now you see on the screen here is a boost button.
Yep.
As I'm playing this here, I'm sending 100 sats per minute. Here's what I have left in my wallet. Oops, let me do that. So now I'm going to hold down the boost button, and I'll make it 1, 2, 3, 4 sats. And here's the split, so I can send it to everybody. Just to Curry and the Keeper. This is Dreb Scott. He does our chapters. They're sovereign feeds. I like sovereign feeds because I use their system. This is Jeff Smith, the song you just heard. I give him 5% of every payment because he created that song and charged me nothing for it. And I'll put in here, survival podcast rocks. Okay. So I hit that. Now the boost has been sent. Now we'll go over to Helipad. And again, we're seeing confetti because stuff is just coming in naturally. Let's see. So it's going through the Lightning Network, and hopefully within a second it'll show up in Helipad. There we go. You see, 1, 2, 3, 4 sats. You see that my balance went up here. Survival podcast rock. So I literally sent this from one podcast app through God knows whatever mojo magic, and it popped into my own node that I have here on a laptop in the corner.
That's amazing.
And with a message. So do you need helipad? We'll make sure that you can install that.
HELLIE or HELL? How do we spell it?
HELIPAD.
HELIPAD.
Yeah. So I'll send a link to a GitHub, but right now you can install it. It comes out of the box on Umbrel. It just got released in the Raspberry Blitz full node 1.7.2. I had not heard of the Embassy Start 9 servers. We need to get it in there too.
I'll reach out to them because that is freaking amazing. That's freaking amazing. And my folks are heavily picking those up right now. So that's awesome.
That's the shit we're building. And what you just witnessed is something that's so fun. It makes the paying fun.
Yeah.
And of course you close that loop on your show by reading the boostograms, and we have an Excel export to make it easy, so you can easily use that in your production of the show. And it really becomes, well, when we do the live stream like we just tested Sunday, it's like super chat, only you don't have to go through some rigmarole to sign up to super chat. You're not beholden to anyone, and it's instant settlement. You got the money. You don't have to wait for a check to come from Super Chat or YouTube or however the heck that works. It's instant.
Yeah. And you don't have the recurrent revenue restriction too. I think YouTube does their membership things like $5, and that's the only choice a person has.
I have no idea.
You have complete freedom. But anyway, you just mentioned live, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. So right now, I live stream, as you can tell. Obviously, I use StreamYard. I think we're on 9 platforms right now. That's great. Is there any way to do that through the tech either you've built or your people built, or like using RMTP or something like that? I could be pushing out, because I'll keep adding on my account here. I'll go to every place I can go.
Yes.
Because life is beautiful. You do one place and it goes everywhere. It's like back end RSS.
This is exactly what we were testing yesterday. So the answer is yes. Awesome. And I have Mo Fax waiting in the wings as well. Anyone who does a YouTube live will love this. You will indeed start up an RTP stream from StreamYard, and you will most likely initially send that to noagendatube.com. Alex Gates runs NoAgendaTube. NoAgendaTube is a web torrent-based video system. And so what happens there is every podcast so you'll be subscribed to the Survival Podcast in your 2.0 app. When you go live, my app will literally go boing, whatever the notification is. It'll say Survival Podcast is live. Jack's live. I will tap on it. Instead of playing the recent podcast episode, by the way, it'll be the top thing. It'll be the notification. It even says a little live banner on it. You'll tap on that. The live stream will start playing, and you'll have a chat, and you'll be able to boost at the same time. What's cool about the web torrent NoAgendaTube is that the bandwidth is then shared. Every person who's watching is automatically a web torrent a client, and will be making bandwidth available to everybody else who's watching at the same time. So we're taking these well-established protocols that have become very robust. WebTorrent is incredibly robust. Are these people who are chatting live who are saying stuff?
Yeah, that's live chat that we're syndicating.
Yo, trolls, how you doing? Nice. I love that. More trolling, please.
Yeah.
So yes, the answer is fuck yeah. This has been the next step. The thing we got to fix now, as we learned last night, is if everyone's boosting all the time, then the wallets lock up, and it was actually restricting payments. So right away we're all on the Mastodon server last night. Okay, what happened here? What locked up? What did you see? Trying to send it asynchronously. So we're going to fix that. We're going to fix it. And it's I get goosebumps, man. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Not so much about the outcome of how it will work, that it will work. It's about the people who are coming together to make it work. Everybody bringing their own little piece. Alex Gates brings it's PeerTube is actually what it is, but it's like a web torrent. So he brings his piece. And by the way, anyone who uses when you use PeerTube for your live stream, it will cost you nothing up front. Alex Gates will agree with you that 15 or he may want 20% of your boosts to go to him because he's providing all the infrastructure for your stream. You can negotiate that. I have no idea what he'll ask. It may be 5%, but then you have the wallet that people or the app that people are using to watch the live stream and supposedly also listen to the podcast. And they will also be and they are transparent, saying, hey, you know what? We had to build this in, so we're taking 1%. And that is all paid for by the person who is consuming it and determines the value. So they decide, not you, they decide if that's worth it to them. So
anybody else can build a technology. Like if they think that what they're charging for that is too high, I don't, but if they did,
someone will go somewhere else.
Build your own tech and then make it better.
That's like Podcast Index. And now we are an LLC. We did not want to be a nonprofit, but we have no outside funding and total vow of poverty. But we said early on, we want 1% of any payment that anybody does using our API. Now, you don't have to use our API. You can get information directly from someone's RSS feed. There's many ways that you can do it. You don't need our index. You can take our entire database, build your own index. That would actually be a good thing. Go build your own index. Then we can compete.
We'll build an app on top of it. I mean, you can, however you want to do it, you can compete or you can collaborate.
And so this to me is a great way to do it because while, our income is quite low, it's basically covering the cost of our servers. We're keeping all the Bitcoin. We're just stacking those sats. I mean, to us, it's more, we work really hard. Dave especially works very hard. But it's more profitable than mining. Although I mine, I got an S9 ant miner here, of course. I'm mining and I love it, but it's really more, if you want some Bitcoin, people say, how do I get some Bitcoin? Well, start a podcast or enable your current podcast and you'll see Bitcoin coming in very quickly, even if it's just the 10, 50 or 100 sats a minute. So this is, people are ready for this. They are so ready for this. And once we can move beyond the, hey man, I'm playing this game against the man, like YouTube. Oh, if I say this, I might get taken down. It's become a sick game. I can't watch it. I really, really despise people who don't understand. No, I don't despise people. I despise the game. And I find it sad that people don't understand you're playing a game and you're losing sight of everything you were trying to do for your community, knitting, soccer, politics, whatever it is. You're more concerned with not being taken down and how far can I go and how risky can I be? And everyone plays into that. And it's like, geez, don't you see? Like, go be free. Be free. Come to the dark side. Be free. Be free. I can say whatever I want. We've said horrible things. And we're just, no one can take us down. But we also, and this is, I come from a total interruptive advertising mainstream world. I've participated I've actually tried to change advertising. That was my big mistake with Pod Show. I was like, oh, I'm sure we can change advertising to fit into this. No. The interruptive advertising model is being rejected. It's being rejected by people who have seen the light of streaming. Like, yeah, I'd much rather pay $5 and get all I can eat. Now, of course, you're seeing the result of the concept of streaming, of aggregating all of these shows, when you have more players coming online who own certain pieces of content. We at home, my wife and I, and we have a nice life. We actually debated, should we really add Peacock to our monthly bill. I mean, we got a lot of things we're paying for here. And what are we really paying for? So this model cuts through that and keeps the non-interruptive advertising piece away, but allows you to only really participate in funding that which you find important. I mean, it's so easy to see. In fact, it's just mind-boggling to me how easy it is to see. And then when I see, like an Eric Weinstein posted yesterday, well, I've been told that the tipping model works very well. You don't need big tech to make money with your podcast, or whatever the hell he was talking about. He said, well, it took 90 days to get $100. This shit doesn't work. Like, intellectually weak, bro. It's like if you go to church and no one ever said, okay, here's the
collection plate, right?
Thank you, the collection plate. You probably wouldn't give. You have to be asked. My wife, a semi-retired communications professional, C-suite level, she says the number one reason people don't give to charity is because they weren't asked by the charity. Now, you don't have to consider yourself charity. You can just explain the truth. I need to get paid to do this. The only way it's going to work is if you support me. If you don't, it'll go away. And I'll remind you tomorrow the same thing. And then people will make it easy, and people will do it. And if they don't like what you're doing, they stop. It's so honest. Everything and by the way, we disclose all the numbers. You can listen to the No Agenda show, and we have a donation segment from 20 minutes to 40 minutes, depending on what's come in, how long the notes are. We encourage people to keep them short. And we mentioned the numbers. That $10,000 I said, we mentioned that. Thank you very much. Oh my God, $10,000. Did that stop anyone? Did anyone get pissed off? Those guys got enough. They don't need it. Surprisingly, no. I think there was one guy, he even registered a website, noagendanumbers.com or something. Like, look at these guys. Look at the money they're making. No one cared. Like, yeah, they deserve that. It was valuable. I like that. I gave my piece. They're doing good. It seems to work for everybody. We're not going to be billionaires. We're not going to be millionaires. We have a comfortable life. We can afford to send our kids to school, and we're enjoying our job. And the trade-off between making a lot of money in broadcasting and being controlled versus being completely free, right down to whenever the heck I want to start, for less money, is unbelievably worth it. Just unbelievable. We have no meetings. We have no bullshit. We got no hotline where the PD's calling, program director. We don't have to have meetings with advertisers. No, instead, we have meetups. We go meet the people who support us, and we hang out and we drink and we smoke weed and we talk about mushrooms and politics and children and love and problems and solutions and freedom and nationality, what it is to be an American or a European. And these things are happening all over the world. That's living. That's living. Running after the dollar is tiring.
You're right. And you don't get a lot of complaints about it. But when you do, there's going to be a troll for everything. Look at the money they're making or whatever. A few years ago, I was getting ready to go on vacation, and we had a troll that was very upset with us because I practiced ketogenic living, and he was a vegan, and he just wouldn't stop. And so I monetized trolls. So I like monetizing trolls, right?
That's a T-shirt, man. Hold on a second. I got to write that down.
I
monetize trolls. God damn, that's great. Excuse me for...
No, it's fine. So here's what I did.
No, I don't like to use God's name in vain. That's rude. I monetize trolls. That's hilarious.
Trolls. So
that's hilarious. I'm stealing that from you.
Go ahead. So it's open source, right? So, and
I'll see if we can get No Agenda Shop to do a T-shirt.
Cool. I learned it from John Willis at SOE Tactical Gear. He monetizes trolls too. So this guy just wouldn't quit, and I'm finally like, you know what I'm going to do? Well, I'm on vacation the entire time. My membership price is half off. To anybody that wants it, discount code is bacon, but you have to agree to eat an extra pound of bacon this week. and you have to give a gift of a pound of bacon to somebody else. So while I was, he
Nice.
literally paid for my entire vacation, my fishing guide trips, my tour out to the island, my bar bill, everything except the hotel. Like I figured out he paid for my rental car, my bar, everything except the hotel. And be a troll, that's fine. And when you look at it like something you're doing, because that's just a direct payment, right? Like you could, there's got to be an app for like a troll monetization.
There's nothing more satisfying getting a boostergram like I just showed you with someone complaining or trolling.
That's beautiful.
That's like, excuse me, did you just send me money to troll me? And you know what? Both sides kind of like it.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. Like, no, thank you, bitch. Thank you. You know, and then and the troll knows, like, he got it. He got the message.
And I'm like,
it's beautiful.
So you know the old saying, I live in your head rent free. Now you actually have them paying rent.
It's not rent. You got to pay.
It's not rent free anymore. You're paying rent to troll. I mean, that's true. That's glorious.
Hey, how many people are watching, man? I'm on the StreamYard. I don't know the YouTube or whatever. Is it all over there watching?
All I can see is the YouTube count. It's the only thing StreamYard will show you. That's 104. But we're on Rumble. We're on Odyssey. We're on Flow.
Good.
So Excellent. It's probably 400 or 500 right now live. It's not huge, but
no, that's
on me because I screwed up our
I don't need 400 people showing up at my house, so I'm fine with this. Hello, trolls.
Hello, trolls. The only comments we see stream in on the side are YouTube comments and Facebook will both stream in. Everybody else is RMTP.
Are those super chats or are those just regular comments?
They're just regular chats. That's just a live chat rolling on both services. And we'll go through the one. I always tell people put all caps in, and then I star them, and we can go back and see if there's any we want to comment on in a bit. I want to turn a little bit into the Bitcoin because I know you're a Bitcoin maxi. Like I said, I'm a shitcoin minimalist. I used to call myself a maxi light. Look, there's a great one. Troll sounds.
By the way, let me answer Thomas Reisner here.
Okay, here
Are micropayments considered fees, tips, gifts? Is it a beneficial distinction? This is a very good question. So first of all, when you ask for tips, you're going to get tips. Don't be an idiot. You know, I don't work for tips. Tips are extra. This is not tipping. This is value for value. So when I can use the Podcasting 2.0 or No Agenda Show or MoFax as an example, when we receive donations, we do call them donations, support, etc. That's income. We report that as income. We pay taxes over that as income. Throughout the years, we've built a model that the IRS accepts, which is an LLC, a pass-through LLC, but they do like this because it comes in so many different forms: checks, Zelle, PayPal, whatever, Cash App. That all kind of melds together. For the sender, it is not a tax-deductible gift. It does fall technically in the U.S. Now, your mileage will vary wherever you live, under a gift. And you can really, I think you can give up to, I want to say, like anything under $1,000 is not really going to be a problem, but everyone's situation will be the same. But, and for many, I know who actually will send a note which advertises their little company or their, something they want to advertise. They may deduct that as a business expense. I don't know. On the receiving side, we report it all as income. Just know that's it. But most importantly, psychologically, you're asking for value for value. You're not asking for a gift. You're not asking for a tip. You're asking for someone to equal the scale. Mm-hmm. You're watching me or you're listening to me, so clearly there's some value there. Otherwise, you're just brain dead. What are you doing? Or maybe that has no value and you just like to sit there and zone out. Fine. But if you're getting any value, just tell me what it is. So the example we use a lot in the beginning is you go to a movie theater, you go into a movie, you take a date, it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe you had a drink, some popcorn, $50. You just listened to this podcast for 2 hours. Was it worth $50? Were you just as entertained? Was it valuable? Was it not valuable? Maybe it was a shitty movie that we delivered, $25. I don't know. That's up to you. So the distinction here again is you have the technical legality of it, which will be different for everyone's situation. But most importantly, what is it? It's value for value.
No, absolutely. And I mean, that's been my pitch from day one to my listeners. If you want me to be here, you want me to not go away, then I need your support, right? And I need you to exchange value with me. And I basically run a members program that most of my members that use it, they say $400 or $500 a year because it's all in the stuff that we talk about, and it's $50 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, if you decide you hate me, but it works for you, you should probably stay a customer anyway because you're basically punishing yourself financially to not. So I'm sure I have some troll customers. That's okay too. But yeah, we can't work for free, right? We not if you want the kind of content. We both do long content shows, and I've been saying for years because we do a lot on entrepreneurship as well, right? Because I think that's a huge part of lifestyle design. Run your own thing. I don't care if it's a podcast. I don't care if it's an herbal business out here. I don't care what it is. And what people need to understand in this day and age is it's actually not that hard to get people to give you money, assuming they have money. What's actually hard to get from people, and you're aware of this, I'm sure, is their time. To get somebody to spend an hour, 2, 3 hours a day with you 5 days a week, that means you really have to be delivering on what they want. And I think it's a very natural thing. And I think it's why we can do things that mainstream never will. I kind of laugh right now watching like every news show now has a podcast, and it's not a fucking podcast, right? It's a fucking rebroadcast of their fucking bullshit, right? And they don't get, like, you have people coming on into podcasting and they're huge. They're on cable TV and all. They're paid tons of money. They put their podcast out. Nobody gives two shits because they don't understand the space that they're in at all. And that's why somebody can build a podcast on freaking, I don't know, Quidditch from freaking Harry Potter, or on, like, I know one guy built a really successful podcast on softball, like, and not like Olympic or whatever. It was more like, apparently there's millions of people that play softball recreationally, like in work leagues.
Oh no, don't say it's true. Not everything is professional and for money. What?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That sounds like humans.
Yeah, I mean, if I would have pitched what I'm doing now to a network back in 2005, they would have told me to go screw. You know, they would have said, there's no way this is a wide enough lane. But I'm sure you're familiar with the 1,000 True Fans model. And to me, podcasting is the place for it. You know, it's 1,000 people who will spend 1 day's wages a year on you and what you do. That's it. It's a very simple, understand thing. Came out of the music industry. The way I look at that, that's roughly 3 annual salaries. I don't need 100,000. I don't need 200,000. I need 1,000 dedicated people. Then you might have to do 100,000, net listeners to get that 1,000 that are just 100% dedicated to what you do. But if you pour it out every day, you can do it. And I think everybody out there, I don't care if it's podcasting. I don't care what it is. If you're not building something for yourself, if you're not building your own enterprise today, you're basically risking your entire future, especially like you mentioned, the millennials. If you're in your late 20s, and you're planning on working a job for the rest of your life and retiring at 65, to me, you're committing like financial suicide in the future. People need to be building something for themselves.
Correct. And the 1,000 fans model I'll actually top that a bit. It's easier to sustain a media property with 1,000 people who pay something, than 100,000. Now, I can tell you from our own experience, the ratio, we started off probably about 1% would actually support financially. Now, that doesn't, all support is quite high. You can hit people in the mouth. That is our code for turning them on to the show. You can propagate the formula, also a version of it. You can maintain a website, or my favorite, and that's really when you say about understanding the space, when it comes to shows that, in our case, because, again, to me, podcasting is, if you got something in an RSS feed, you're good to go. I don't give a shit you're podcasting. I don't care what the content is. Why do people like No Agenda so much is because the only thing I'm really good at is picking the hits. Whether it's technology, music, ideas. Now I'm often early, or too early, certainly to monetize, because I've never hit the big exit, and I'm quite happy about it in hindsight. As I'm now 57, I'm like, okay, it's good. I know what it takes for a big exit and what comes with it. Now we're closer to 4.5 to 5%. And of course, our audience size has also grown significantly. But overall support, where people are sending me what they think is important. Here's a story that I think is important. What's really cool is when we bring up a story, and a lot of our people are what I would call the physicals. You have the virtuals and the physicals. And you have this one group of the virtuals who are the pajama brigade. These are people who are outraged that the truckers are honking their horn. I'm just going to say it. And they're mad at the physicals. And the physicals, even though I'm a virtual myself, I come from a very physical world, a very physical family and background. The physicals are annoying. That's why we want driverless trucks, driverless cars, pilotless airplanes. We want doctors that aren't working in a hospital. We want telemedicine. We want medication that doses you automatically and monitors you and sends it to Dr. Bill or whatever the fuck is going on. And by the way, I don't want that, but there's a big push from the technocrats and people who want, some kind of, transhumanist world that we'll live in, where all of these annoying people are based, and nurses too, teachers are a fucking annoyance to them. So when you have them in direct contact with you, we knew what was going on with this whole pandemic and with lack of treatment and incorrect ventilation. We knew this very early on because the people doing it, being told to do it, were telling us. Everybody is an expert in at least one thing. It could be scratching your nuts watching reruns of Friends, but you'll know when it comes up and you're going to tell me you were wrong, or here's more insight, or here's something to look at. And that's what makes our show successful, because we are the producers produce us. By the way, I also get to yell at producers because they're producers. So if someone sends me an email with a screenshot of a story and there's no link to the story, I'm going to yell at you. Say, what are you doing? You're not producing. Give me the link. You're a headline reader. And what's interesting, people will actually take that, apologize, and usually donate with a note to say they're sorry and how they're going to do it better.
Well,
because they know we have to keep this going.
I got to start
yelling at people is great.
If it's going to come with money.
Yes. And
I always say don't hate money. Apparently I'm hating money. I'm doing it wrong.
Well, no, this is well, there's a lot to learn. You said something really powerful, man. I monetize trolls. I mean, this is mind-boggling. It's so true. Because a troll can be a friendly troll that just says, you're full of shit, you're wrong about this. Here's what's really going on. That's a friendly troll. That's someone who is, you're trolling along and you may be using triggering language. But how can I be mad at you if you just sent me money to tell me that? I can't be mad. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll be better. I actually would like to build into it. I like to refund people. I mean, I've done this on PayPal for many, many years. If someone's like, me, I hate the show, I'm unsubscribing, blah, blah, blah. I say, how much have you donated? $50. Okay, give me your PayPal. I'll send it back right away.
Oh my God, we're the same person, Adam. I've done that. I've had people after all my years of supporting you, and I'll look them up in the database, and I'm like, you were a member for 1 year, and I'll do it publicly. Like, you were a member for 1 year on a sale price, and I just sent you your $25 back.
Yeah.
Now you're fired as a customer. Go somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry I had a bad experience. And by the way, I should only be giving half because Dvorak gets half, but I'll pay the full thing just to clear the air. I got no problem. If you don't get the value and you're pissed off, I'd be happy to refund you your money, because I'm just like the guy at the store. I want you to go away and say, okay, I didn't like his product, but he was straight up with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I wanted to talk a little bit about maybe some Bitcoin stuff in general. And I know your time's valuable, so I don't know how long you have, but I appreciate you being here with me this long already.
I figured 2 hours is what you need from me. That seems like the length of your shows. So I can do another half hour. It's fine.
Fair enough. In the Bitcoin world, I'm sure you're aware of like what Mike Saylor's doing. And I think he's been a great ambassador for us personally. Yeah. I don't know if you agree or not. One of his concepts, and I'm really interested to see this play out eventually. And I think it might be really valuable for people like you and myself and listeners who do the same thing, that we hold long, and we're like, I'm not getting rid of my Bitcoin. If it comes in as Bitcoin, it stays in Bitcoin. is the idea that eventually we'll be able to basically borrow fiat against collateralized Bitcoin and do that almost infinitely the same way people do with appreciating real estate now. Have you put any thought into that?
Lots of thought. I'm always encouraging everyone who does stuff that I interact with, right down to the propane guys. Like, hey man, can I pay in Bitcoin? You know, it's like, you want to talk about this? I haven't convinced a lot, but this Freedom Convoy was an interesting example of how we still need a lot of boots on the ground type work as we get the circular economy kind of running. So this is why podcasting 2.0 value for value streaming payments is incredibly valuable to Bitcoin, because it is a circular economy. I am receiving Satoshis. I take those Satoshis, put them into a wallet, and I boost other podcasts with it. Those podcasts, they're taking it. They may take a piece and loop it out through Bitrefill, get an Amazon card. I mean, you can turn it into money. But I like the idea that many will then use that, purchase a Raspberry Pi with Bitcoin. You see, we are kind of using it in this little microcosm of an economy. I don't know if it was Gigi or if it was Max who said kind of the way to live is, stack everything in sats. And of course, sometimes you need fiat fund coupons. So, there's multiple ways you can, turn your Bitcoin into fiat for the things that are absolutely necessary, while we continue to do things with Bitcoin wherever we can. And that's kind of the world I'm living in. And I'm seeing more and more and more of the things I consume I can now purchase with Bitcoin. The most recent and most exciting being the Beef Initiative, which is set up by Texas Slim, my buddy from the Panhandle. And he came out of semi-retirement because he saw a version of what I was seeing. I'm seeing a very disillusioned age group of older millennials who feel totally fucked because they were born around the first Gulf War, so they lived through that. Then there was 9/11, very scary time for any 9 or 10-year-old, for any 40-year-old. Then we had anthrax attacks, and then we went into the wrong country, and then don't worry, you need this college degree, and then we had the financial collapse, and don't worry, the money's we're gonna fix it all, and everyone wound up with $13 an hour jobs with $100,000 in debt and a dead end, and they're fucking pissed. And so a large group, Bitcoiners, excuse me, they've said, no, we're not going to let you devalue our money by 7.5% a year with inflation. We're going to do something about it. We want to fix the money, and we have nothing to lose, is what I hear. We got fucking nothing to lose. So these are the people that Slim saw becoming very unhealthy and not having what he calls food intelligence. And it starts with seed oil, all oils from seed, and how destructive that is to your body, and how psyops have been run on the public to eat unhealthy food, the impossible meat, the infrastructure of food with the processors who are definitely moving more towards plant-based protein that looks like animal protein, bug protein. I'm not saying that all of these are bad ideas, but and when Slim reached out to me, he said, I want to help the same group of people, but I want them to get to know their rancher, and I want them to understand where the beef comes from and what the cattle is eating. And very compelling, he said, let's look at all these pictures. He is 6th generation Texan, or maybe more. Look at these pictures of my grandparents. How do they look? Do they look obese? They look weathered. Are they healthy though? Yeah. Why? Because they ate beef, and it was good, and it wasn't, and the cattle weren't eating Monsanto grass and all this shit. And so he saw the same opportunity and set up the Beef Initiative, which connects people and retailers too with the rancher, getting the beef directly from the rancher and paying in Bitcoin. Come on now.
I love it. I love it.
And it's not really explainable. I'm not my sister is actually doing her thesis right now in this technological psychology shit, and she helps me a lot understand how it works in the brain. But when you have this connecting network that is Bitcoin in this case, it becomes special somehow. And you have it, and I bought I bought a quarter cow, like $800 worth of cow, but I also spent an hour with Cole, and he drove me out in his 150 and F-150, and we drove out and we met all the cows, and the cows came up and went rrr, and I was like, fuck, you look tasty, I'll talk to you in 12 months. Then the bulls show up, and he said, this is this bull and this bull. And when we had our first burger, because they give you a whole selection of stuff, the difference in just the patty itself, and we've had butcher box and all these kind of things, but it's bullshit. Once you and somehow the honesty of Cole and Michael, who are raising these cows with love and with respect and dedication, and it's this cycle of life, and it's going through this process and coming into me, and I felt it. And I know that no other shithead was in between that transaction. My Bitcoin went straight to those guys, and their beef went straight into my system and my family. This is living, brother. This is the, and you know what? It's cheaper too.
Yeah. Absolutely. I didn't know you were so big into like kind of the regen ag direct source food market. I'm glad to hear
only
that.
Because I keep my ears open and Texas. I mean, my wife and I have always been healthy eaters. In fact, I have to work to keep weight on and to gain weight because I have a psychological thing where I forget to eat or don't want to eat. I got to be reminded to eat. But then, why not? I mean, we have our own well. We have a aerobic septic tank, so it requires no scooping out. It's a beautiful invention from the swamps of America. It basically, my shit spews back out over the land in clean form, and the grass is happy. We have a whole house generator. We have sources of food. We have good friends. We have an Akbash dog that guards us. We have weapons, ammo. Not that I'm expecting anything terrible to happen, but I have a lot of peace of mind.
Well, I didn't know all that. I mean, that's what I've talked about with prepping from the very beginning. It does give you peace of mind. People say, you're doing it because you're afraid. And I'm like, no, I'm doing it so I don't have to be.
But it's also we may because we're preppers, but we need to prep for the right things. Yeah, and this is people are prepping. When they think prepper, look, I happen to also be a ham radio operator. I have my general license. I've got I can do 40 meters, 80 meters, 20 meters, 10 meters. 20 is what I'm on most of the time. I can do PSK. I can do JT65. I can do FT8. All the digital modes, low power, high power. I participate in the field days. I can string up a dipole and blast. A kilowatt if I have to. I got it all. I can also do repeaters, all of this shit. I got it all. That's not important. What's important is who's my neighbor? What does my neighbor do? How can I assist my neighbor? How can they help me in an emergency? Where do I get my food from? Who is supplying it? What is their background? These are the very simple things. And I just have a huge distrust of not the actual electric grid itself, but how it's being. The Enron people never left. They just went to grids everywhere, and they're still fucking us with their trading schemes. And that's what happened last year in Texas, not some other bullshit thing. So, like a dog, like literally get a knife, carry a knife, understand how to use a knife. The knife is a very effective tool for a lot of things. Carry a knife. These are small things that will really help you survive. And we're not going to have a civil war. I'm not thinking that. If something really happens, we're going to be dealing with a large population of homeless people who are very proficient at surviving, don't need shit to survive. But if they get angry, if they're mismanaged, which I see happening everywhere, then you can have like a full-scale zombie attack. And I hate to have to talk about my fellow citizens that way. And I have done as much as, and continue to do as much as I can, supporting programs that work, certainly in Austin, the Mobile Loaves and Fishes Community First Village, where they really help people sustain themselves inside a community without guns or guards or anything like that, but community. But the way it's failing right now across the board, like, bigger cities, that's the shit that's gonna come down. And there's gonna be no cops to protect you unless you're rich and you have a private force, because cops don't want to work anymore. And can you blame them? When you're sick, where are you going? You're going to go to the hospital where they kill you. Literally, they've killed people, and by protocol.
No,
by CDC.
I've been ranting on this since the beginning of this shit. And when this happened, it opened up a whole Pandora's box. So this isn't new. Like the research I've done since then, they've been doing this kind of shit a long time. This just made it where it was everybody's problem and everybody had visibility into it. It's the same formula. I mean, we'd go off on another 2-hour tangent.
Let's talk about schooling. This is another one. So, by the way, the virtuals lost that one. We'll just educate your kids through Zoom. It'll be fine. No. So, to bring it all full circle, we're seeing doctors leave the system and nurses, and they're using off-the-shelf technology for scheduling office visits. It's called concierge medicine. They're only serving their community. They charge you a reasonable subscription fee, as many visits as you need for your entire family. We're seeing schooling changing right before our very eyes. A lot of it will manifest itself in charter schools, which have issues as well. But homeschooling, alternative types of schooling is being created as we speak. This is fantastic. And it's off-the-shelf technology. Anybody can do it. But, freedom always requires a little extra work, an extra step here or there, because it wasn't made easy for you by some centralized system or service.
You say the virtuals lost that, but I think it's like the virtuals that we saw out of the schools lost it because parents got to see that not all teachers were heroes that didn't wear capes. They got to see what was actually being done to their children.
Right.
For me, it was a benefit because I really wanted to take on homeschooling my grandchildren. And my son and his wife were really not totally on board. And they're their kids. I can't make them do it. Well, when COVID hit and we had to do homeschooling inside the state system for a few months, I was like, why don't we just keep doing this? See how much more happy they are? And we use a program called Excellus University. And the guy that invented it is named Roger Billings. He invented gigabit Ethernet. He did like the
I've heard of him. Sure.
Yeah, he's an awesome dude. And they're thriving with this, but it's because they're not trying to make every teacher have a Zoom classroom. They take the best teachers, they package the lessons, and then if the kid has problems, there's automated assistance. And then if you still need help, then you can reach out and have a teacher help you. So that makes leveraging the effort of the best teachers scalable. And they went from they grew like 1 million students between the beginning of COVID and now. And I think there's 6 million homeschool students in North America, right? Or in the United States right now.
Sure.
So they're like, it's like a sixth of the freaking kids that are doing this now are using either them directly. They have a way you can do it for free, or they have what we do. We pay a small amount every month and they get a transcript and all that out of it. Like the
homeschooling community in America has always been very, very strong and rich. And it's only gotten better. But also in the United States, we've seen a shift. We've seen mama bears appear. Mama bears went, you know what? No, fuck this shit. Not going to stand for it. Not with my kids, not any of that shit. And they're very protective and they're looking for alternatives. And this is why things are happening and things are popping up. We need to, sadly, build alternative systems around what is going on, because COVID-19, I think, just the prequel. What I see happening to our brothers and sisters in Canada, It's shocking. I grew up in Amsterdam. I saw women and children being beaten by riot police for a protest. Holland, what? What? This does not compute. So,
No.
So we're in resistance. We've been in it for a long time. Bitcoin is the very slow, loving, peaceful resistance. And so when you talk about Michael Saylor and people like this, they're important because they are trapping everybody else. They're trapping the elites into it because of greed, and it's beautiful. And so bring them on, bring them all in, trap them, because ultimately, it's going to be too valuable for them to want to
never let go of it,
make it difficult, etc.
Yeah,
and there's one other thing that I've been thinking about more, because as we move through this first phase of follow the science, words matter. Follow the science. You follow the leader. You follow Jesus. You follow Muhammad. You follow and worship things. And as we move into the next phase, which will be the biggest scam that it will be perpetrated, where we have this convergence of climate change fear, which I think is certainly overhyped, guilt, carbon usage, and carbon is very loose because is it carbon or carbon dioxide? Fuck it, we'll just use carbon. The idiots won't know. The ESG that these companies that are now trapped by fuckface Fink and BlackRock, which means that you have to go along with the environmental social governance goals. You have to go along with the climate change, the greening. You have to go along with social justice. All of this is leading to a worshiping of science, which I think is at the root of a lot of our problems. And I myself, I have to say that when I look at what happened, all of this evil, this is not just a plan by a few people. This is evil. And
it is.
If you see evil and you say that shit's evil, then I intellectually have to believe in God. The evil must be doing this against some force that is God, love, universe, whatever it is. And I've been seriously considering my faith. I've never been a churchgoer. I mean, I grew up Unitarian, which is like it's really weird. I have stories about that. I was baptized, but a lot of my family are believers and a lot of them aren't. Some are pure atheists. And I've just always kind of copped out by saying, the universe provides, which the universe does provide. But I have so many people around me who are believers and believe in Jesus, believe in God, that I find myself thinking about it a lot more.
Maybe you're like me and you just don't know it. Maybe you're a deist.
Who knows? Yeah. I mean, I'm a lot of things. I don't know about that.
I know when I first learned about deism, I'm like, oh, that's what I am.
I don't know. Maybe
something, but I don't know that we know exactly what it is. It's a tiny minority. Like there's way less deists than there are atheists. There's way more Christians than there are deists. So maybe we're wrong, but to me it makes sense that there's something.
Yeah, well, I like the idea of believing in something a little more intangible than climate change and the solutions provided, or the science, because the science fucked a lot of people bad this last time around.
And how much of the science is now being told was never right in the first place, even though it was settled and not to be questioned. To me,
the worst.
I mean, that's me, Adam. So when I was in 6th fucking grade, I learned the scientific method, right? 6th fucking grade science class, you learn the basic scientific method, and then to have somebody say you can't question it, like you're going against even 6th grade fucking basic mechanics of science. I had out for a year and a half an open challenge to debate any doctor or scientist on here. We'll get banned again on the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine, up to the point where they could have 2 assistants. They got double the time. Like I stacked the deck totally against myself, and I'm just a redneck hippie duck farmer, right? Podcaster. Like, if I'm wrong about this, then surely somebody out there will be able to do it. And I don't know if you're familiar with Steve Kirsch, but he's got like millions put up to debate any of this shit. None of these people will step up and debate this. How do you have fucking science without rigorous academic debate? Though, if you don't have those two things in the same room, whatever you have is not fucking science. These assholes have made science into an authority and an institution versus a fucking error detecting process. That's what fucking science is supposed to be.
Well, they have done nothing. We have allowed this to happen to ourselves.
Agreed.
We have allowed by false prophets and by psychological warfare. This is what media is. It is always psychological warfare. It is all. This is where my family comes from. They come from military and intelligence, and it's all about what's in the media. And the real battle here is you have the elite messaging system, which has been in place for decades and decades. It's worked quite well. In fact, it used to be really easy. You just had to do an interview with CBS, Evening News, the New York Times, maybe Washington Post, International Herald Tribune, and your message was God's message. That's the message, and that's what's going out, and everyone knew it. And then, I mean, really what broke that is President Trump. He broke it. He said, oh, no. I'm not going through your messaging system. I'm going through this messaging system, which was Twitter. So that's why he had to go. And when they saw the power of Trump on Twitter, well, everything has to go. And look at the articles about how problematic podcasting is. Well, it can't go. And that's why we need to reject legacy apps like Apple and Spotify. Don't get trapped in that, because you wake up one day and your favorite podcast is not going to be on there and you're going to be scrambling. Now, you'll go to newpodcastapps.com eventually and you'll find an app that you like that will provide you access and features and ways to monetize trolls. And you know, but let's get it set up now and be ready for all of that, because they cannot stand it. And I use they in a very literal sense, the elites who have always used the mainstream media to communicate their message, typically through the use of former intelligence people, government issued mouthpieces, and they just and sources and all. It's bullshit, and everyone's onto it. Fake news is now a worldwide phenomenon, and we're in a very confused state of what is real. And I would say that in the past 2 years, podcasts have done a very important job. And I'll ask you the same thing I've asked everybody else, and I know the answer. I'm sure you have received at least one, but maybe 1,000 emails that go something like this. Jack, thank you for your podcast. It literally kept me sane during this pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thousands of variations of that.
Now, that is very annoying to the people who are supposed to make you feel warm and fuzzy or really anxious and scary, and are paid to do this through PSYOP. And the algos on social media are a part of it. So this is all very unhealthy. But when people tune into a podcast and it helps them realize that, oh, I'm not the only crazy fucker. Look at this guy. He's a fucking redneck duck farmer. I just heard him say it. But him and this chat and these people, they make me feel good about life, myself, etc. How can that not be a valuable product? How can that not be valuable in this world where we are just being crushed with information that is weaponized?
Yeah, that's a good transition. Let's hit a few of these before you got to go on. People that have been all capping.
Because they're anxious when they're all capping.
Yeah, well, I tell them to do that when we're rolling through, and I star them so I can go back and pull them out, like so I can see them. I don't have to read them. I can just hit star while I'm talking. Okay. So Grumpy Green Guy says, need to set up a no agenda meetup at Float Fest that is happening not too far from Adam. I'm not sure if you know about Float Fest.
Yes, I know all about there. Floating in a river of vomit. Yes, I'm
no. Float the app, not float the river.
Oh, okay. Float the app. I don't know what float. Well, okay. Here's something important. the meetups are in-person events.
Yeah.
These are not virtual events.
No, this is in person.
Okay, good.
This is the company Float, FLOTE.app, doing a great big kind of like Lollapalooza type festival down in Central Texas. And we'd love to have you come out, or at least some of your people come out.
So what typically happens is there will be a meetup organized at Float Fest, and anyone who is going to be there and would like to organize it can go to noagendameetups.com. You can schedule that meetup. It gets promoted on the show. Hopefully you'll send us a meetup report, which we sometimes have 4 or 5. It's like a minute long, and people all say hi and what they talked about. And yeah, I mean, if it's on a day I can make it, of course I'll be there. I love meetups. I love hugging people.
You could pop in for one day if you want to. It's like a week long. I still have to have my wife get my schedule together so I know when I'm going to be down there. But
yeah, I guarantee you, if not already, well, let me take a look right now. I bet you someone's already scheduled a meetup. No agenda meetups.com. Would you know the date?
March, April. It's end of March, beginning of April.
Okay.
I've agreed to go, so of course I don't know the date.
Why would you?
Why would I? But Float is like a social media app built on blockchain, has integrated Bitcoin tipping.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're badass. The owners were just here at that workshop. FLOTE.app.
Yeah. Cool.
You guys got.
Does it work on Graphene OS, or do you need to have?
I have no idea. It's browser based.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see anything.
They actually just had they had a Google app, and Google asked them to censor shit. So Kingsley and Aaron told them to go fuck themselves. And they're like, we're not even going to put any effort into building apps. We're just going to stay browser based.
Now, does this require a shitcoin token?
No, it does not require a shitcoin
nice.
token. Now they are going to have a shitcoin of their own at some point, but you don't have.
Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you?
Social media. Okay, I'll get on Float. I'll check this out.
Yeah, check it out, man. That'd be great.
I mean, so this is another. Again, this is one of these cool things. Like, here's all this new stuff that is, I don't know the story about Float. Doesn't seem like it's a venture funded thing. Is this just a thing that people are doing?
No, they actually do have some VC money behind them.
Okay.
But it's just basically 2 libertarians decided we're doing things differently, and
I'll check it out.
Yeah. Here's another question. Here's another question, K-Bonk. What excites Adam at the moment about the future of Web3 that's not realized yet?
Well, what we're doing, as we talked earlier, Web3 is just bullshit. I mean, whenever someone says Web3, they walk away. Because what we're doing now is we are decentralizing and monetizing at the same time. That's what the venture capital promise of Web3 is. So to me, it's just exciting to see more and more people understand and find the alternative methods and start to adopt them and use them for fun and prizes, but also for love and community and connectiveness, and not necessarily for gaming. Basically, like, social media is just, gaming, except when you die, maybe Twitter will let you give you another life.
Maybe.
You get 2 strikes on YouTube, that's 2 of your lives gone. It's like in the game, it's a silly game. It'll be over, and then everyone will come to all the alternative things. And with alternative, that's not Rumble. It's not Odyssey.
No.
It's not. These are more shit you can get kicked off of eventually. I'm a little bullish about truthsocial.com because it appears that it may be built on Pleroma, which would mean there would be federation, which would mean, I don't know, it might mean that, the Trump social network thing is going to really be beneficial for a decentralized communication. It would certainly be a behemoth. I'm also very excited about things like Project Greenlight from Blockstream for C Lightning, where we'll be able to have non-custodial wallets that you can program with a simple API. So we can basically put money into anything. I mean, like my vape, I was like, I should be able to click this vape and send a sat to the guy who made it.
Yeah, especially if you're really
Boom.
enjoying like something really nice at the moment. Like, hey, I just feel good now, so I'm going to send this guy.
Or just have it every puff I take. I mean, it registers how many puffs. It registers how long. I mean, why wouldn't I pay for my vape juice like this? Jeremy over at Vapalicious here in Fredericksburg, he'd probably think it was cool. Once you think about programmable money, it becomes so fun. There's so much fun stuff we can do.
Another question we had was about a lightning education book. I don't know if there's a book. I'm not big on books much anymore, unless it's for recreational purposes. But do you have any like resources you'd recommend for people to learn more about lightning?
What I would recommend is grab an old laptop or an old computer. Everyone has some piece of shit laying around somewhere. Put Ubuntu on it. It'll work on pretty much any hardware, and it'll run decently, better than your Windows. And go to getumbrel.com and install Umbrel. It gives you a full note. You will need at least a terabyte hard drive. You might have one internal. You can get a solid state USB external drive. Learn how to install something on Linux. Not that hard. It's actually improved quite well. I mean, Linux is a success story of our time. I use it almost exclusively, except where I really can't. And take a look at it. That's the best way to learn and learn about channels. You're going to have to do some work. There's not real. I love books. I read lots of books. When I want to get something done, I just grab the software, grab a machine, and go like a bull through a china shop until I can get it working. There's lots of people online who'd be more than happy to help you set something up. There's lots of groups, Telegram groups. I mean, you can even go to Stack Exchange and get some simple answers for stuff. So there's not really a book I can recommend, but it's so cost effective to try it out, and it doesn't,
and don't worry about screwing it up. Like when you first fund your first Lightning node, put a little bit of $20 on both sides of it. If you fuck it up and lose it, whatever. Like there's a cost of learning, right? Like the reason kids go so fast on computers, they just start fucking with shit till it works. Right. And I think we lose that as we get older. We get way too cautious. Like be cautious when you're playing in traffic, but not
because it's all decentralized. You have to go through these steps. There's not a website you can go to that says give me Lightning. It's not. There's not a book that says read this and you're Lightning. No. You've got to do some work. I'm a VJ. Okay, I'm interested in stuff. I think I'm pretty intelligent, but I'm not a programmer. I'm not a sysadmin guy. I just broke a lot of stuff a lot of times until I figured it out.
Yeah, I would agree. So we got one more, and we'll let you go there, Adam. We mentioned books, so I figured I'll pull this one up. What books are you two reading or could recommend? Diamond doesn't question, but I'm curious.
What am I reading right now?
Yeah, what are you reading right now?
Right now, I'm actually reading Glenn Beck's Great Reset. And the reason is he's asked me to be on his show March 1st, I think. And it's about ESG and et cetera. And so I've been reading his book. Actually, it came in, he kindly sent me his book. My wife immediately took it and read it within like 3 days and highlighted a whole bunch of shit. So I have like a super cliff notes now. I can blow through it. So that's really what I'm reading. I find myself reading longer Substacks often. And, I've actually been reading Naomi Wolf. Sorry, wrong Naomi. Who's been writing some very interesting. She's a super lefty liberal, and she has been outcast from the liberal left.
They're the best. They're the best. A leftist who the left turns on, they are like one of the best sources you can find.
I find her writing very enlightening, very exciting, beautiful to see. So that kind of stuff. I've read most of the classics, all the things. I've read. If anyone hasn't read, the ones you really need are 1984, Brave New World, Animal Farm, Atlas Shrugged. read Atlas Shrugged. It'll take you a month, but I've not actually read Fountainhead.
It's shorter. It's maybe an easier entry into that world for people, you know.
Oh, no doubt, you know. But when I read Atlas Shrugged and I read the hardcover, and it took me a month, and I was like, this is the best love story I've ever read. It's Hank and Dagny. It's a love story of epic proportion, but also I read this right around the time when Obama was, high-speed rail everywhere, trains good, planes bad. You won't have to take off your shoes, which turned out to be bullshit. If you remember the Viper teams, like TSA right away went, oh yeah, no way, Obama, we got to check everyone for bombs on the trains. Which of course the whole book is really about, the industrial world in this setting. So these are foundational books for me. Nothing else at the moment, really.
Yeah, so I'll answer that one too, since it was thrown at both of us. Right now, at night, I read something that has nothing to do with what's going on. I do this shit all day, every day, and I need something to decouple from. I'm reading one of Dan Brown's very early books before he did Da Vinci Code and all that, called Digital Fortress, and it's probably one of the best he's ever done. I'm rewriting. That's all on cryptography and things like that. If I was going to say some core books to go read that I think really can open up people's minds, Robert Shea and Robert Anton Wilson combined to write Illuminatus Trilogy, which is all conspiracy and trippy and bouncing all over the place. I reread that once in a while, and it's like a Bible. It takes a while to get through it. But like every conspiracy theory you can think of that existed by the time that book came out is wrapped into it. And then there's a ton of stuff that's been pulled out by like Hollywood and what all. If you remember I think it was called Sequest with the talking dolphin and all that shit. They totally ripped it off right out of that book.
Really?
And the one I'm going through right now, I'm actually doing on Audible because I can't sit down and read it because it is so disturbing. And I'm biting it off in 15, 20 minutes on, Audible listening is Robert Kennedy's Real Anthony Fauci. And that.
My wife and I both read this. Yes. I thank you for bringing that up. That's a great book.
That is the most eye-opening pattern recognition thing you can do. And when I didn't know if you read it or not, but once you read that, like, you can't believe anything these motherfuckers say ever again, ever.
Well, also, I very early on, I lost friends during the AIDS crisis, and I met Fauci, and I all the people. I was in the Hollywood kind of set at the time. It was like this big celebrity auctions. Billie Jean King, Michael Jackson. The AIDS Project Los Angeles. And once I really started delving into the bullshit and what was really killing people, because it was AZT that was killing people.
Yes.
And this was Anthony Fauci. And you can go back and read the Village Voice. Michael Musto wrote a scathing front page piece where he just said, basically, fuck you, you Fauci, you killer. And we've forgotten all that, and that we can't bring that. But it was really a precursor to what we just lived through, with the same type of results and medical malpractice, in my opinion, but also it shows how captured the industry is. The amount of doctors and nurses I get emails from who say, well, I literally can't do anything. I can only do this. I'm being told to do this, and it's either this or no job. So most of these people left their jobs. One other book I would recommend, since we're all talking about the metaverse, and I owned metaverse.com years and years and years ago, is Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. That is what the future of Mark Zuckerberg's imagined future is the metaverse from that book. So go read it, and learn how to code, because if you can't code and the metaverse becomes life, you got a fucking problem.
Agreed.
Or make friends with people who know how to code.
And you mentioned that article in Village Voice. If you remember, that was in that article, he quotes Pelosi, who basically called out Fauci on the floor of the Congress and knew exactly what he was. Like, knew exactly that there were two drugs. I don't remember what they were called, but they were very, very effective in early treatment. And she asked him,
"Shit, man, vitamin C was effective."
Yeah, vitamin C. Yeah. It's like the same thing all over again. But she asked him, "What would you do if you had AIDS right now?" And he said, "I'd probably go to the street and take those two drugs." And then now he's gone. Now, so if anybody doesn't think this is just a game, I don't know what else to say. But dude, this has been a great thing having you on my show. We'll turn 14 years old as a podcast this June.
Wow! Congratulations! How many episodes?
This is 3037 today.
Ooh, okay. Nice. Well done.
We do 5 a day, 5 a week. Except when I'm gone, I do rewinds and I give them their own numerical things. So I take old shows and redo them when I'm like last week when I was off hanging out with people. Man, thank you so much for being here today. Tell people how to learn more about you. Not that they don't know already, but tell them anyway.
Well, the place to really get a hold of me is podcastindex.social, and that's a Mastodon server. So you could, if you're on Mastodon, you can just follow me, Adam, at podcastindex.social. I'm on Twitter, but I really use that as an inbox of shit. So, that's not real, or like I DM'd you out of desperation. But that's about it. And otherwise, go have a look at newpodcastapps.com, where you can find modern podcast apps. You can sort it by features, by OS, and also if you're a podcaster, you can find which hosting companies provide which features. And above all, support your favorite podcasters. Support them. And thank you, VR, for asking me. Today was day 14 of COVID. I had not had it. I started feeling pretty good about 3 days ago. My wife now has it, of course. But then we'll both be happy because according to Dr. Bill, we heard him say at the Munich Security Conference, sadly, Omicron acts like a vaccine and gives you strong immunity against B and T cell, or with B and T cells. Sadly, the vaccine didn't do that, but he, Dr. Bill, the world's doctor, the biggest contributor to the World Health Organization, literally said Omicron acts like a vaccine. Happy to hear that. I have a great vaccination in my blood. Even though I'm disappointed it was probably some kind of bioweapon with some fucker making something that irritates me a lot that I had that in my body. But otherwise, we're good and we'll be fine. Thanks to Zverdo kit. I don't know if it helped, but I felt pretty decent. I worked throughout the whole thing. It was ivermectin, budesonide, and zinc. Came in a blister pack. I got 50 of them. I've given them to a lot of my friends, and we're all still here.
Well, again, Adam, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you for what you're doing and for jumping on board with Value for Value and for letting me interact with your tribe here. It's good to see everybody.